Ciao a tutti, welcome. This is our fourth product talk here in WeRoad. And today we have Lorenza with us. Just to give you a bit of context, I had the pleasure to meet Lorenza during, at the beginning of this year, if I'm not wrong, during an online masterclass. She was one of my teachers, and she talked about product marketing. So after that course, I wrote her, I asked her to join us here. So here we are. I'm super happy. Thank you, Lorenza, to accept our invitation. And I think we can start by introducing yourself if you want to share with us a bit who you are, your background, and your experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And first of all, thank you for thinking of me. I'm really happy to give this talk, let's say, and to answer your questions. So I'm Lorenza. I'm obviously Italian from Rome. I've been living in Paris for the past almost 6 years. And I've actually started my career in Italy, in Milan, in strategy consulting. So I worked at Bain & Company for 3 years, worked on several different projects, many industries, many different countries as well. And then I moved to their office in Paris because I wanted to kind of get that international experience, as many Italians do. After a while, I decided to move away from consulting, and I started working at a tech company that you may know that's called Criteo. It's a big advertising technology company. It's French. And I was doing project management, basically, kind of consulting, but inside the company. And while working there, I discovered product marketing. At the time, it was 2018, something like that. 2019 maybe, and product marketing was still a very new function, a very new role in France at the time. And at Criteo, we did have a team in the United States where it was already a more established function. And so I discovered it as part of a project that I was working on, and for reasons that, if you want, I can explain later. I got super interested in the role, and I just decided that that's what I wanted to do. And like I said at the time, it wasn't easy to find a job in PMM, but I got lucky. I found a job which is in the company where I still am today. It's called Aircall, and I've been at Aircall for a bit over 3 years, with a break in between where I went join a different startup in Paris. And I've gone from being an individual contributor in 2020, back when I joined Aircall, to now being director of a team of 7 people, 7 product marketing managers in total. And just to give you maybe very briefly some context about what Aircall is, we are a cloud-based phone system for businesses. So basically, we provide a phone solution that is going to be used by businesses to manage all of their either inbound or outbound calling needs. And of course, with that, we have a number of functionalities like analytics, for example, integration with customer relationship management tools and other tools that really allow them to use their phone in a productive way and really analyze the performance of their calls. And we're present everywhere in the world, a little bit in Italy as well, not that much. Especially in the south, we still have some problems with the quality of Wi-Fi, and so the phone doesn't work very well when the Wi-Fi doesn't. But yeah, and my team is global as well. We're based between Paris, New York, Texas, and that's it.
Thank you so much. If we don't have questions, I think we can start with the Slido ones.
Yeah.
And there's a first big question that I want to start from, which is what is the main difference from your experience between a product manager and a product marketing manager? And if you want, we can attach another one, which is what is the main responsibility of a PMM, of a product marketing manager?
Yep. So I think maybe I'll start with the second one. Actually, I'll answer the 2 questions at the same time. There's one very simple way of I think, describing the difference between PM and PMM, which is the following, and it's debatable, not everyone agrees on it. The product manager is responsible for putting a product on the shelf, and the product marketing manager is responsible for getting that product off the shelf. So making sure that somebody actually buys the product. So usually, and this can vary between B2B and B2C, for example, and it can vary also depending on the stage where the company is in. But the main role of the product marketing manager is really to amplify the product on the market, both internally, I would say, but also on the market. So making sure to take what the product team builds, package it into a nice story that will resonate with the people you're trying to sell to, meaning that they will understand what you're selling, they will see the value of it, and they will want to purchase it. That's a very simple definition. And in terms of what that means for product marketing, it means that product marketing needs to really understand the market, of course, and the buyers. And here I can say there's the first difference between product management and product marketing, especially in B2B. Usually the buyers and the users are often not the same person. The main responsibility of the PMM is to really understand the buyers, whereas the PM, although they have to understand the buyers as well, for their daily work, they're really going to focus on the users. So that's one of the differences which exists especially in B2B, less in B2C, because in B2C, usually your users are also your buyers, unless you're selling to kids, for example, in which case it's different. But so just to go back to what I was saying, the first difference is that the type of personas, let's say, that you focus on are a bit different. And the PMM needs to understand deeply this audience, because then the second responsibility of product marketing is really to message, to put a message behind the product. So once you understand who your buyers are, what their pain points are, what their needs are in general, you're supposed to really position the product in a way that will resonate with those needs. And again, depending on the type of product, whether it's B2B or B2C, the complexity of it, you can have multiple buyer personas, and you need to really make sure that you have a clear message for each one of those buyer personas. And then, of course, in all this is something that the product marketer is supposed to do all the time. But then a lot of the product marketing value, you see it in launches. And that's where also we collaborate with product a lot, and that's also where the difference between the two roles is very evident. Ideally, the product marketing manager intervenes from the very start of, let's say, the product development phase. Even they usually, that's at least what I try to do, they usually intervene from the very moment you start developing a product strategy, because as an expert in the market, you want to give input on market trends, where the market is going, what our competitors are doing, and so on, and also what our customers are saying. But there you're really more kind of in a consultative position. Where you actually start to do something as a PMM is when launching. So usually the product marketing manager is kind of, the way I like to define it is being kind of the master of the orchestra, let's say, when we're launching something new, be it a new product or a new feature. The product marketing manager at Aircall, but also other companies, is the one that is going to make sure that we have a launch plan in place. So from communicating internally to communicating externally, be it through the website, launching marketing campaigns, through events, paid advertising, and so on and so forth. They will collaborate with other marketing teams to make that happen, and really be the link between the product team and the marketing team. And in the case of B2B, they're also the link between the product teams and the sales teams. In B2B, of course, the sales is not direct, right? You have to go through usually a salesperson or a customer success person to purchase something, especially in software. And so the role of product marketing is also to train sales teams, not only on the product itself and how to use it and how it works, which is something that, for example, at Aircall, we really push the product managers themselves to do. But more importantly, for PMM, we train sales on how to talk about the product, how to pitch it, what messages to send based on the audience they're talking to. I could continue talking for a whole hour about this, but I know there are several questions, and so I'm going to stop here.
Yeah, maybe you answered like other two questions, but we can try to deep on them, maybe dive deep on them, because we have one question that asks if the PMM is part of the marketing team or the product team, and how it interacts with other teams like sales, customer care, and stuff like that. So maybe we can dive deep on this,
Yes.
just to understand where does the PMM stay.
Yep. So that's another topic. Like, should product marketing report into product or marketing? You hear different opinions about this. The truth is that in around 80% of cases, product marketing reports into marketing. My personal opinion is that it doesn't really matter. It really depends on the kind of organization you have. I personally report into the chief marketing officer, and I spend 50% of my time working with product and the other 50% with marketing. So it's not because I report in marketing that I don't work with product. Either way, you'll have to work with both teams. The reason why often product marketing reports into marketing is because, like I said, to me, the primary mission of PMM is to amplify the product on the market. So you're really very connected to everything that the marketing team does, be it the content team on the blog or the website, the digital team on paid advertising and stuff like that, the events team. Like you're super connected to those teams, and as a PMM, you try to make sure that they talk about the product in the right way at all of the right touch points. And so that's why I think it makes more sense for PMM to report into marketing, but really I believe it can work both ways. And how do we collaborate with other teams? So I'll start with sales and customer success or customer care. It's a two-way relationship. There's, let's say, a push and a pull part. For PMM, the push is training. So we're responsible for training and resources, let's say. We give to sales and to customer success the knowledge about the product, which means whenever we launch something new, we deliver a new training, but it also means that we give them content like pitch decks, for example. Different demo videos is another example. Then depending on kind of the model that you have, the type of assets of content that you share with them can change, but we basically give them the tools to really talk about the product in the best possible way. And then there's a pull part. We also try to gather information from them. They're a very precious source of information. So we regularly, for example, speak with sales to understand why they're winning or losing certain deals. Again, this is specific to B2B, because in B2C you usually don't have really a salesperson. We try to understand why they're winning or losing. With customer success, we would try to understand why some customers are churning, what are the reasons behind those. And of course, we have data that allows us to track this even without speaking to them directly, but it's also important to have that relationship so that they can share more qualitative insights. And that relationship, I think, is really, really precious for product marketing. And then with other marketing teams, the way I look at that relationship is product marketing gives kind of the foundation. So I would say, this is the way we talk about our product. And we can have, for example, messaging frameworks for that. This is the way we talk about this specific product. This is the way we talk to this specific audience about our product. And then the marketing team takes this messaging and uses it whenever they're creating a blog article, for example, if we talk about content marketing, or when they want to launch a new paid advertising campaign targeting a specific persona. They will really start from our, let's say, foundation and then build on it, because marketing managers, whatever their specialty, they're the experts in their channel, in their marketing field. And we don't really get into that, let's say, tactical part. It's more, let's say, upstream on the foundational part. And whenever we do launches, same thing. So we say we're going to launch this. This is why we build this product. We give all of the context, all of the background information. This is who is going to benefit from this. This is why they're going to benefit from this. And then other marketing teams, and here really depends on the marketing organization, and there are hundreds, if not thousands, of different ways of organizing a marketing team. The marketing expert, let's say, they will take what we have and build it into their own campaigns. And that's, I think, those are, let's say, the main stakeholders we work with.
Super interesting. Thank you. Go, Rick.
Yeah, just a quick question on this, just to be more, let's say, practical on my side. Basically, what is your team responsible to deliver? So you deliver like a strategy to the marketing team, or you deliver like content or something like they actually use directly? So
yeah.
if you should like describe what are you responsible to deliver to the other team or your stakeholder, what would you say it is?
So the deliverable are there's a lot. If to be super concrete, I can start with one very concrete example of a launch. We launched a big new feature. It's something that we've been doing a lot in the past few months. The first deliverable of product marketing for us is a product marketing brief, and the main recipients of this brief are all marketing teams. And this brief would include context. What is it? What are we launching? But also why we decided to launch it. What's the goal behind the launch? Are we trying to acquire new customers? Are we trying to retain the customers we have, for example? Then we get into how do we talk about this new product or feature. So really messaging. How do we talk about this product? What's the value proposition? What are our competitors offering, and how do we compare to them? So all of this information that should allow anyone in marketing to really understand what we're delivering, and this is the first deliverable. And then there's some things, more concrete things that we would do ourselves. For example, we are responsible for all of the feature pages, product pages on our website. So whenever we launch something new, we would go and either update an existing page or create a new page. Then the content team goes back to it, they optimize it for SEO, they re-edit and so on. But we are the ones that create it, just because it's more simple. We have writing skills, we know the product, and so it's easier that way. Other things that we can do directly without going through marketing, of course, is creating all presentations for sales, the pitch deck, and so on. That's also some of the deliverables that we do ourselves very concretely. And for the rest, there might be other things that are done by other marketing teams. For example, we want to create a series of blog articles, not just one, but really a series to support the launch of this feature. They would do it themselves, and we would be there to review those articles as they create them, to make sure that they really are in line with the way we talk about that new product or feature.
So basically you provide a strategy, the basic content and the tools to roll out that strategy, and the metrics that you want to move, and how to measure if you're going the right direction, and eventually adjust the strategy along the way.
Exactly. Yes.
Good. Thank you.
Welcome.
I have one more question about, just we're talking about this internal documentation for internal users. Are you taking care of that too, or is something that you delegate to the PM?
It depends on what you mean by internal documentation.
Okay.
So we have our product is rather technical because it's a telephony. So usually there's a bunch of documentation that is created by the PMs directly, especially and often with the help of engineering as well, especially the more technical content that is, for example, going to be used by our customer support teams for troubleshooting or for answering very technical questions. And usually as product marketing, we don't get into that. But we do create the internal documentation for sales and customer success that is usually less technical. And so that's something that we take care of. It's very collaborative with product management though. For example, one thing that we do is in our internal documentation, we always create a little, I don't know if you're familiar with Loom. It's a demo tool. It's a video tool that we use to record our screens. And usually it's the product manager that does a little demo and then shares it with sales. It's governed, let's say, by us, but the PMs collaborate a lot on the creation of internal documentation.
Great, thank you. So I can follow up with a question regarding this, more or less. So before you talked about B2B and B2C products, but the question is the PMM also a role that can work for internal platform products, like back offices or stuff like that? And if so, how is the role inside those products? How it works, what they deal with?
Yeah, I had seen that question. It's a great question. The simple answer, but this is my opinion, and for me, the simple answer is no. And we have this case exactly at Aircall. We do have, and I think it's the case for a lot of digital products. We have a part that is really an internal product, and we don't collaborate with the PMs on those. The reason being that, for me, the value of product marketing is really about that messaging, value proposition, making sure that your customers understand what the value is. I think a product manager with good communication skills can handle an internal product himself, and I don't think product marketing can add a lot of value. I actually, at Aircall for a while, there was a situation where I had, before I was the director, a product marketing manager working on an internal product, and I actually decided to stop that because it really didn't provide any value at all, in my opinion.
Thank you for the answer.
Also maybe because in that case, your users are forced to take from the shelf what you're building, and not you have to convince them that they should.
Exactly. Yes. Which, I mean, doesn't mean that the experience would be poor or anything, but just
but they have to use the product, so you don't have to convince them, and so it makes no sense to apply your skills and okay, cool.
Okay, if there are no questions here live, I think we can move on the next one on the Slido, and which is how the PMM deals with product growth, or if the PMM deals with product growth.
So it depends on what you mean by product growth. That's one thing that I think is like growth in general. Like we have several roles now that are labeled growth. Sometimes it can be more product, sometimes it can be more marketing. So to me, it depends on what you mean. I don't know if you have maybe a way to clarify what.
I don't know, but I think assume it is about product growth. So maybe user growth or
kind of in product, product-led growth. Huh?
Yeah, it's not my question, but I don't have more.
Let's assume it's about product-led growth. So at Aircall, we don't have that role today. So all I know is from reading about it. Reforge, I don't know if you're familiar with Reforge. It's a learning platform. Reforge courses and stuff like that. PMM is linked to product-led growth in many ways. Again, really in terms of PMM being the expert on the audience you're trying to reach. In the case of product-led growth, what you're doing is basically you're targeting your users who may or may not be your buyers. You're targeting your users and making sure that they come back to the product, and maybe try to also create some growth loops, which is not something that you can do with every product. So usually that requires some technical skills, and that's not something that PMM, at least from what I have seen, does directly. But we collaborate. We can collaborate with growth teams. Same, giving messaging, saying, for example, this category of buyers or users is more likely to use this kind of functionality, and so it makes sense to focus on this rather than that, these kind of things. But they're really two separate roles. Again, one being very tactical. So with product growth, I think the goal is to have really short-term objectives. If you see that, it's a long-term strategy, but you can really get short-term objectives. Product marketing is more something for the long haul.
Okay, so we get an answer. So thank you. And there's another one about product analytics, and if the PMM interact with BI and or data analytics teams, and how?
Yes, we do. And I actually think it's a super important relationship. So for product analytics, I think the main stakeholder for them is and should be the PM. What we do though at Aircall, for example, in the context of a new launch, the PA and the PM discuss together the metrics that they're going to track post release. What we have started to do now at Aircall is that the PMM is also part of that conversation, because we want to include as much as possible business metrics as well. Not that the product manager can't include the metrics himself. I think usually product managers are more than able to understand the business impact of the features or product they're releasing. But we're part of the conversation because whether it's business impact, so were you able to actually generate that additional revenue, for example, that you wanted to generate with that new feature or product, or product impact? Do you have sufficient adoption? Are users adopting the product in the way they're supposed to? Those things they usually are impacted by the way you communicate about that new product or feature. For example, if we see that we don't close enough deals because of that feature, one possible answer could be maybe we don't really have product market fit on that product, but another answer could be maybe the sales team that the product marketing team trains has not been trained well enough, and maybe they're missing some information. And so that's why, yes, we are involved in defining the KPIs with the product analytic teams. But if you use, let's say, if you wanted to use a RACI model, we are kind of consulted or informed or consultant, because we tend to give our input. But we definitely speak with product analytics a lot.
Thank you. It's interesting. We have a BI and data analytics team, but we are missing PMM at the moment, so could be interesting. And there's another, I think, good question. Can the PM and the PMM roles converge, making a PM responsible also for the product marketing part? On your opinion or experience?
I think yes. Like product marketing is, before being a role, it's a function. It's something that you have to do. It starts becoming a role in itself, of course, when you have more more products, more complexity. But I don't think it has to be necessarily a role in itself. I think especially in B2C, even more in B2C than in B2B, you can have PMs that also, let's say, play the role of product marketing. In B2B, I think it's a bit different because of what I was saying at the very beginning, because of that distinction between users and buyers. I think it can be challenging for one single function, so product management, to redevelop an expertise on both. And that's why I think it makes more sense in B2B to have this distinction. But concretely speaking, yes, I think it's I think it's possible for a PM to do both. The skills can be a little bit different. Again, one person can have them all, but in PMM, there's like the skills that, for example, I look for in the people I hire include writing and storytelling, which are really important skills. Like I said, sometimes we write website pages directly. I have met a few PMs in my experience that were good writers, but it's definitely not a core skill for them. So that's also something to consider.
It was interesting also because we don't have PMMs here in WeRoad, but probably sometime our stakeholders think that the PM should also work as a PMM for some part of the internal and external communication, especially. And
Yeah.
so I don't know if we should have a separate function, but definitely we maybe could help to have a PM that has also some expertise or some skills that are specific for the PMMs, for the PMM's function. So
yes, and I think what typically happens, like usually, and I've seen this a lot because now there's a lot of PMMs in Paris. It's really a well-established function in the Paris tech scene, let's say. And it wasn't the case, like I said at the beginning when I first looked for a job. And what I've seen is that usually companies start doing, like they don't have PMM, then they realize that they need to do some product marketing, and so they expand the scope of the PMs for them to do it. And then after a while, they realize that it's too much for just one team or just one person, and they create a separate function. But sometimes I think you need that experience also, because it can vary depending on the type of company, the type of product, the maturity, and so on.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's
I
great.
have a question, Seba. Can I?
Go.
I'm hooked up on what Rick is saying, that we haven't a PMM. And so I ask, according to your experience, what a company miss if it doesn't have a PMM?
That's $1 million questions. Everything, of course. Every company needs to have a PMM. I think one thing that you can miss is consistency in the way you talk about your product externally. That's definitely one of the things that, again, from my experience, makes companies realize that they need a PMM, is when you start talking about whether you have one or multiple products, you start talking about your product in different ways, whether it's on your website, different pages of your website, your blog, if you have a blog, events, and nobody's really super clear on how you talk about it. It also becomes like the need becomes clear if on top of that you also have multiple audiences that you sell to. It becomes even more difficult to have a consistent message, let's say. So that's one symptom, let's say, that I think can lead you to say maybe we need somebody really focused on that. And I think it's the biggest one. Another one can be also that the PM simply doesn't have the time to do everything. I think already the role, and I see it at Aircall, right, where the product managers don't do any product marketing. Already the role of a PM, which at Aircall includes both PM and PO, because we don't have a dedicated PO role, is already a lot. And so you have to deal with internal stakeholders, engineering, which is complex. You have to deal with other internal stakeholders because you still communicate, of course, a bit about the advancement of your product. And then on top of that, you also have to take care of how you talk about your product externally. It starts becoming too much, and I've seen that. So that's another symptom that you can see.
Okay, very clear, interesting. Rick, we have to hire a PMM. So
my next question would be: do you think that this picture that you gave us applies as well in the case of a product which is not just a technological product with a digital main channel of communication, but in our case, for example, our product is a mix of the experience that you do before actually booking a tour, because you want to understand which will be your experience in terms of a group and the people you're going to travel the world with. And then you have the actual product, which is a very, very physical product, which is the experience that you have on tour in that specific destination, with like features that are features, but are features that varies a lot depending on where you want to go, the kind of experience you want to have, and so on. So we are not talking about a product which is like only let's say communicate on a web page, but it's also like an experience before the actual booking and departure and so on. So what I'm asking is, do you think that they are also in this case a PMM could have that kind of impact that you are describing in your experience in that kind of product?
So your product is definitely a specific kind of, I think, a specific kind of product. But my first answer would be yes, especially for all the part actually that will lead somebody to your platform to book a tour. I don't know how that happens and how they get there, but I think in making sure that, and I don't know also how you do advertising. I guess it's a mix of different channels, but making sure that in that kind of awareness and consideration stage, all the messages are consistent across all of the platforms that you use. I imagine you also have different personas, although maybe you address millennials mostly from what I know about We Road. You probably have some different segments. So making sure that segmentation is understood and that you have a clear message for each of those segments. Then whether, again, like whether it's somebody that has a product marketing manager job title, somebody that has a strategic marketing product manager, like it doesn't really matter what title you
for the function, you call it as you want, but you actually have to solve that problem. And you got it right, because for example, one of our feature, which is part of the product, is that we decided to refer to two specific age range, like 25, 35, 35 plus. And that's the problem both on the digital side, because we have to be consistent and be very, very clear in order to have people understanding why we have this kind of age range definition, and why we think is part of our selling proposition, call it as you want. And at the same time, you need to understand how it's reflect on the actual product, which is the tool that you're going to travel to in a good or in a bad way. So that's right. It's still a feature, even if it's not just like a technological feature or a capability. Yeah. So, and that's probably the reason why sometime our stakeholder would expect that our PMs also act as PMM, because they need to be sure that we are consistent, both in designing the feature, developing the feature, and also make clear to the customers or to the users that how it works and why it's important. Yeah.
Exactly, it's definitely a need. Yes, and then
So we to answer Filippo, we don't need actually to hire a PMM. Maybe we have to to understand if that function is covered already or not. If it's not covered, then we definitely should consider to hire a PMM.
I was joking, Rick.
No, you are applying.
No, I'm not the right person. I'm not the right person.
Thank you. We have also one last question on this topic in chat. At what scale does it make sense to have a PMM, in your opinion?
I will answer with what I have seen, what I have observed. Again, in the Paris tech scene, is most of the companies I see start hiring PMMs after they have like their Series B. So usually when they say, okay, and the Series B is also the moment when, for example, they will rebrand their websites, no? So they say, okay, now we want to be serious. We want to go at like full scale. And so usually there are all of these projects about rebranding the website, new website pages, scaling also on the marketing communication channels. Usually you also have one or two big product developments that you want to do. And so you want to do very good launches and make sure that you that they resonate well, that you amplify those launches on the market. And so that's why often after a Series B, independently of the number of employees, in Paris, what I've seen is that a lot of companies start hiring. What I'm starting to see now, though, that the PMM role is well established in France, is that some startups start hiring product marketing very early stage, like when they're very small. Like as soon as they have a PM, basically they will hire a PMM. So, and I really don't think there is like a perfect formula. I think really it's important to understand what product marketing means as a function, then think, can anyone among the people that I have today do this? And then if the answer is no, then evaluate hiring someone, building a team. But I think the important thing is really focusing on the need.
Thank you. Super clear, at least for me. And we have 15 minutes and 3 questions left. I will go with one that I would like to introduce with the collaboration between the PMM and the design team. And the question is, how do you identify buyer personas and how do you share them with the team, and at what stage do you use them?
So first of all, the design team is my favorite team to work with. I always loved working with designers. I don't know why. We collaborate with designers quite a bit. So a while ago, I can't remember exactly when, we did this whole project with the design team to create both user personas and buyer personas. We collaborate. They focused mostly on the user personas. We focused more on the buyer personas, but we adopted the same research methodology to get to them. And then we created this nice little really persona profiles with the same kind of information and so on. And those are on the user side, they're used consistently by the PMs and also the designers whenever they work on a development of a new feature. And the buyer personas are actually basically never used, now that I think about it, by product or design. They're mostly used by sales for us and by marketing when deciding, for example, how to write the copy of something, how to design a new marketing campaign targeting a specific buyer persona. So on the buyer persona creation or user persona creations, we collaborated a lot with design, and we also collaborate with design because, or at least design involves us in reviewing the prototypes of the new features or products they develop. Just before this talk, I was on a call with one of our designers to review one of the prototypes, especially when there's a question of who sees the product, who buys the product mostly. And also, to be completely honest, I try to be involved with design because I just enjoy their work a lot. And it's always nice because on the PMM side, we often talk about theory. And I think with product design, you can actually get to see like the actual problems and what things actually look like. And yeah, I think it's a very, very interesting field of work. So I try to work with them a lot.
So the design team is also like the bridge between you and the PM and the development of the actual product, basically.
Yes, you can say that. Yes.
Yeah.
Super interesting. Also, to keep, I think, to keep consistency between what you write on the blog post and the experience that you have on inside the product,
Absolutely. And I like to actually, whenever I have a call with design and they show me prototypes, we often end up getting really into the details. Like, can you show me how this is going to be possible? That is going to be possible, because it also helps getting kind of into the mind of the people who are going to use it, or at least also the people who are going to see a demo. It's very concrete, and I think I always learn a lot of things also about our users whenever I speak with our design team, and I think it's very valuable.
Thank you so much. We have our designers here, Eden, in the call, but I think we can move. We have two last questions. How do you keep updated on what competitors are doing?
That's a very good question, especially because in our industry we have so many competitors. It's a very competitive space, and so we actually have a tool for that is called the Crayon. I don't want to get into that because that's a tool that I don't think is could be really interesting for WeRoad. I can tell you what I used to do before I acquired this tool. I spoke with our customers on a regular basis. So, sorry, let me take a step back. I spent a lot of time on competitor websites, like a lot. Every week, basically, I would go and check what they have done. I would check the mentions in the press, for example. Is anyone talking about them? How are they talking about them? I would go and check their reviews as well, what their customers are saying about them. And then at the time, we were doing some regular reports to the leadership team. It was actually something that PMM was doing about what was happening on our market, what were the moves that our competitors were doing. And then we were building what we call the battle cards. Again, not really relevant for you, but like information that we shared with sales on what to say about that specific competitor when you have them on a deal, why we're better, and so on and so forth. And there was something else that I wanted to say, but now I completely forgot. Yeah, so I think that's the way I used to do things before. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. What we try, it's not always easy, but what we try to do within PMM is to speak with our customers on a regular basis in the form of interviews or sometimes surveys. And usually when we do that, we ask them, if they're still an Aircall customer, we would ask, who else did you evaluate before making your decision? And then usually they tell us, and we ask them, why did you end up choosing us? What did you like about that competitor's solution? What did you not like? So we also try to get some direct information, and we try also to get this information from our sales and customer success team, because usually customers speak about competitors with them. So we try to get that info too. It's not easy though. I think it's one of the most difficult things to do, to be honest.
Yeah, I think the same. And we have one last question. I read it. It's an interesting question from my point of view. As a woman in a leadership position in a male-led environment like the product world is, has it been challenging for you to get your value recognized?
It's a very, very interesting question. And I mean, I started my career in a very male-led environment because I was in strategy consulting in Milan. Like, I think 85% of my colleagues were, no, 85 maybe is a bit too much, but I would say at least 75% of my colleagues were men. And so I kind of got sort of vaccinata, let's say in Italian, very early on. And actually in tech, I always found maybe I was lucky, but I always found a very welcoming, very diverse kind of culture. I don't think I have not this perception of it being difficult for me to work in the product world, of it being particularly, difficult for me as a woman. I think what maybe helps is also I can be a very assertive person. So I usually don't have any problem, especially working with male colleagues. But that's probably just my experience. I think anything other than working in consulting in Milan is easier in any case. So actually one of the reasons why I chose tech is because of the culture that you have in these kind of environments where most of the people are young. The system tends to be more meritocratic than in other industries where, for example, seniority counts a lot, whereas it's not the case in tech. So yeah, I never found myself in a difficult, let's say, position about this.
Thank you for the answer. Questions are done in Slido. Do you have questions here for the people in the meeting? If not, thank you. Hope you enjoyed.
Thank you very much.
And,
I hope you enjoyed it and you found it interesting. Yeah. In case you want to stay in touch on LinkedIn, feel free to add me. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Thank you.
Fermi tu, Rick, si ferma da solo.